Okay, Doug, what pearls of wisdom do you have for us?
Thought we'd talk a little bit about fibromyalgia today. Headline of this CNN story I'm looking at says, little understood, often frustrating. And as they like to do, they highlight a specific individual who has fibromyalgia. It was a 31-year-old receptionist from Georgia, and she was quoted as saying, it's kind of like burning, but an ache, almost like you have the flu. And in this article, they say 6 million Americans suffer from this chronic condition called fibromyalgia. And then according to the doctor she eventually ended up with, she bounced around to several doctors before she finally hit upon this specific individual, a rheumatologist from Atlanta, Dr. Jeffrey Lieberman, who's quoted as saying, Dana is typical of a fibromyalgia patient. She came to my office complaining of a lot of diffuse pain all over her body and fatigue. She didn't really know why she was getting it. Well, in the article, they say some believe that this is something triggered by an emotional or traumatic event. Lieberman himself believes it's related to a sleep disorder and poor exercise, quoted as saying it appears to be more of a neurochemical process. In other words, in reality, there is no inflammation in patients with fibromyalgia. Now, he actually got her involved in a drug study with Cymbalta, and it is one of 2 medications that are approved by the FDA for treating and managing fibromyalgia. Of course, Cymbalta is actually a dual reuptake inhibitor. It inhibits serotonin and norepinephrine. And also another drug that is approved for this is Lyrica, which it is actually an epilepsy or anti-seizure medication. Now, just in the last week, an FDA advisory panel looked at 11 different drugs that are all of this same type and considered a black box warning for suicidal behavior. Now, they elected not to put the black box warning on because they received a lot of flack from doctors that prescribe this medication and from the pharmaceutical companies that make it. And so Lieberman is quoted as saying about these 2 medications, both of them are geared towards the patient's well-being as well as improving their pain. And he actually encouraged this receptionist lady to eat a healthy diet, which I'm sure consisted of the 4 basic food groups: stress reduction, getting enough sleep, and a regular low-impact exercise, something like aerobics, because that stimulates endorphins and enkephalins, which are natural pain relievers. Now, he was actually quick to point out in this article that even with proper medication and adequate exercise, fibromyalgia has no cure. Now, I've heard you talk about fibromyalgia for a number of years, and I believe you have a different take on that whole situation.
Well, absolutely. Well, when they have all these forces and all this money and all this effort and all this brain power focused on it and there's no cure, that tells you they're looking in the wrong direction. Because you can spend a lot of money, time, and effort looking in the wrong area, and you'll never find the answer, right? Well, we actually learned what causes fibromyalgia back in the 1950s in the animal industry. It's called, in various species of animals, things like stiff lamb disease, white muscle disease, and it's actually a nutritional deficiency disease of the muscles. Even the muscles get nutritional deficiency disease, right? And so what you do is you take the Mighty 90, you take all the known essential nutrients, you add some special muscle supplements such as the selenium and the glucogel, these sorts of things. And this is going to support and promote healthy maintenance, repair, and metabolism of skeletal muscle, heart muscle, smooth muscles in the intestines, bladder, and so forth. And stay away from fried foods and sugar. No smoking, of course. And exercise, I wouldn't do exercise until all the clinical symptoms go away. Then you can exercise. Don't be exercising without these nutrients, because exercise without supplementation is suicide.